Welcome to Washington in Focus. I'm Carlene Johnson, and I'm joined by Eastern Washington reporter for the Center Square, Tim Klauser. And Tim, making some progress on the homeless issue in Spokane this week, or where do things stand? Because this is an issue you've been covering for the last year or more pretty intensely for the Center Square. Sounds like some proposals are advancing, finally?
Yeah, the Spokane City Council brought a proposal to a committee meeting on Monday. It's the first official proposal that they've introduced since a pretty long, drawn-out series of community roundtables just on the issue of homelessness, the city's policies, and changes that residents would like to see. Now, they announced these roundtables more than 6 months ago. They wrapped up back in December, so they've had some time to get these out. The thought was that we'd see these probably in January, maybe the beginning of February. Now, it's almost April, and we're just starting to get a look at these now. We did get a look at 5 or 6 other proposals already, but those were never officially introduced. Those were actually leaked to the Center Square, and we reported on them pretty in depth, but this one was not included in that list. I sort of alluded to it, but this is new. And the proposal that was given on Monday is it's called a ban the address ordinance. It's kind of similar to the homeless Bill of Rights that was introduced earlier this summer, more of a sparse back version. So instead of doing what the Bill of Rights would have done, which is essentially decriminalize homelessness largely, this ban the address ordinance essentially prohibits employers from rejecting candidates solely based off of their housing status. So basically, if a person that's homeless applies for a job and they don't have a permanent physical address, you can't ask about that, and it can't be your basis for rejecting that candidate.
Okay, so this is a council in Spokane that is pretty ideologically divided, I would say. And you've got the conservative definitely in the minority. So it kind of reminds me of, the divides in like King County or even Washington State, and different approaches to homelessness, right? Cracking down on them to help business owners, or sidewalks clear for the public, or just more of an approach to, they're people too, and they need a hand up. So that is the differing approaches to the council for how to combat the homeless crisis in the Spokane area. Has that kind of held things up from moving forward, or what's been the holdup? Because you mentioned 6 months ago was when these roundtables began.
Yeah, I mean, that divide on the council is definitely holding it up. The council, there's 5 essentially progressive members and 2 conservatives, one of them being a nonpartisan position. Over the summer, the 2 conservative minority members, they introduced several pieces of legislation around homelessness, whether it be expanding the sit and lie law, resolutions to support enforcement of anti-camping laws on public property. They proposed several measures to this, but none of them really jived with the progressive majority members. And without support from that majority, they can't pass any of these proposals. Now, a lot of these actually received a pretty broad support from the community. Others did not. But regardless, it's all up to the majority in this case. And almost every time they either deferred the ordinances or resolutions indefinitely, or they referred them back to the committee of origin, which essentially leaves them dead because the majority doesn't want to pick them back up. Now, after this happened about 5, 6, 7 times last summer, the community was understandably upset, and the council announced these roundtables. They said, hey, we understand we keep putting off all these policies, but we actually want you guys to come and tell us what you want, and then we'll use that to adjust our policies. Now, a lot of those drafts that I got before largely reflected what the community wanted through these roundtables, but they haven't been brought to committee yet. And I was told before by Councilmember Paul Dillon, who's among the majority, that this was because of legislation flowing through the legislature, which is currently in session, that could make it harder to pass policies like this. Now, both those bills have since died, kind of positioning the city to either get a move on or explain to residents why they're not taking these up, with months having passed since they started the roundtables, and now since the roundtables have even ended in December.
And so I should have asked you this at the beginning, but I mean, paint me a picture for how bad the homeless crisis is in Spokane. I mean, I'm thinking of like, downtown Seattle, Olympia, a place where I spent a lot of time as Capitol correspondent. It's pretty evident just driving down the street how bad things are, and business owners don't like it. Members of the community don't like it. So give me some idea of what it's like there.
Yeah, I mean, Spokane County, they just did another point in time count back in January. We're likely not to see numbers on that probably until later in the spring or early summer. But looking back at the January before, that 2024 point in time count, they had just over 2,000 homeless people across the county, much of that within the city of Spokane in the downtown area. So it's definitely an issue. I mean, homelessness is easily the most highly politicized issue in the city on both sides. A lot of people had more hope when Mayor Lisa Brown took office and her sort of transition to the scattered site model. But that has sort of struggled to lift off the ground. It could take a while. So on both sides of the aisle, people are sort of squeezing their hands, waiting for action. I mean, last year, the numbers that the county released on overdose deaths, I believe it was around 350 for 2024. I mean, that's almost one person every day dying on the streets. And these are in front of businesses. It's impacting people's livelihoods, both homeless and people that are housed.
And that differing approach, as you say, is so politicized because you've got the people that are on the streets, many of them, I would say the vast majority, drug addicted, and or mental illness, right? And so a lot of the approach from the progressives, if you will, on the council seems like it's, accommodate that, give them a hand up or low barrier, no barrier type of shelter versus others who say, we can help these people, but in exchange, you're going to have to get clean and sober. I don't know how you get past that divide to really start helping to solve the problem, right? Unless there's a, carrot and stick somewhere in that. I wonder if were some of the community roundtables or those discussions, some members of the community, did they come back with some ideas on how to address that and approach that?
Well, a lot of the ideas that were brought in these roundtables were actually just rehashing the policies that the minority already introduced. I mean, they talked about a few other things where they could adjust activation criteria for surge shelters during extreme weather, stuff like that. Less, I'd say, politicized topics than, say, camping on public property. But a lot of it just backed some of these ideas from the minority, like having good neighbor agreements. So you have higher standards upheld between the city, the service providers, and the community. Not allowing shelters within a certain distance of schools, parks, and daycares. Things like this, generally popular ideas. And I think there's just been a continued pushback from the community because, through these roundtables, it was essentially just residents saying, look, this is what we want, give it to us. And they haven't done so. And that was apparent on Monday too. Councilmember Zach Sapone, who's also part of the majority, he took issue with the fact that Dillon proposed this ban the address ordinance on Monday. He said, look, why are we picking and choosing? There's a number of other proposals. Why not bring them all at once? And Dillon's argument was, look, this fits exactly within this committee, and it's up to you guys to reintroduce the other ones and the other relevant communities. And he called on Sapone to do that. But it was interesting to see the divide, even just amongst progressives on the council on proposing these new measures. And Councilmember Cathcart, who is one of the other minority members, he said, look, we can't keep putting this off, whether it be to do things behind the scenes or not. We need to just take a vote on that. And Dillon closed the discussion and saying, we need to just get over these divides and vote on it.
And have they set any deadline for making some decisions here and moving forward? Because it it does remind me of, like, Seattle, King County, they have a lot of discussions on critical issues like this. One of the most critical issues as far as the community goes. And then they go, okay, well, we're going to set a date for more planning, more discussion, more studies, and time goes by. And as you pointed out, people die.
Yeah. They could take as long as they want on this. I mean, you mentioned it when we opened the discussion. I've been reporting on this for almost a year, this sort of back and forth, and it was going on long before then. But in terms of this proposal, the ban the address ordinance, this should get a vote within the next 2 or 3 weeks. It might go to council next week, get a first reading, and then the week after get a second reading, some testimony, and then a vote on it, assuming that the majority doesn't defer it to a later date or refer it back to committee, which is possible. But I mean, the ban the address proposal essentially is just a sparse back version of the homeless bill of rights, which was very popular amongst the majority. So, I mean, seeing that bipartisan support amongst Republican Jonathan Bingle and nonpartisan Michael Cathcart, it's likely that we'll see this one pass through, hopefully without any palace drama.
Yeah, well, I know it's something that you're watching really closely, and you've got lots of contacts that are hopefully leaking you more information about it before anybody else gets it. But thank you for your coverage of this really important issue. I mean, it's really a issue of, a matter of life and death, and, enough with the debate. I know a lot of people just want to go, okay, do something, to fix the problem. So Tim Clouser, our Center Square, Eastern Washington correspondent, thanks again for your time and the discussion. We look forward to continuing more. And if you'd like to read more of Tim's stories, thecentersquare.com. Thanks again.